Today, just want to take a moment to update the community on an internal affairs investigation that has concluded and final disciplinary actions has taken place. This case is related to one of our deputies who was involved. Deputy Willard Miller, back in 2019, was involved in an incident while working at a school. It was witnessed and captured on camera, whereas he slammed this young lady down into the ground. That launched an internal affairs investigation. Of course, the internal affairs investigation process was somewhat told because of the pandemic that occurred. We had an agreement when the agency's under a state of emergency, which the whole state was, to toll, meaning pause, hold off on some of these cases. Of course, the state of emergency has been released. We're back to normal, so to speak. And the final aspect for our case was to allow the deputy to have his pre-disciplinary hearing, and that was conducted. With that being concluded, I ended up finding that the charges in terms of policy violation were sustained, and the recommendation was brought forth towards me where he was terminated effective immediately. So that took place today. Just another reminder, going back out into this community, over 2 years, 8 months now, where this administration has been leading up this agency. We started out on the premise of accountability and transparency to make sure that we would do the things important for this community, not only within our public safety responsibility, but to gain and maintain that trust. This is indicative of that. It's also a reminder that we are still holding people accountable if nothing changes. Whether it be an incident that took place in 2019 or something that may take place tomorrow, we're going to do our very best to make sure that no one gets a pass, no one gets a break, and that we don't put the public in harm's way. So that's the reason we wanted to call you back out and give you an update, and without taking any questions that you may have. Still ongoing. The state attorney, of course, came into his transition period, of course, after winning the election, and he is currently assessing and evaluating the criminal aspect with his team. I think it's important that at some point give him a minute or two to get established on this, and then I'd say forward the questions along the lines to him directly. I don't recall any reported injuries, but what I will tell you, ma'am, is despite injuries or not, that the behavior from our personnel, from a deputy, was egregious and unnecessary. So I would hope, I haven't heard that she was injured. I hope she was not injured. If she was, it just speaks to the importance of why we need to hold these men and women accountable. Part of the internal affairs process, when we get to a point where we suspend someone within a collective bargaining agreement with our unions, typically we suspend with pay. If there's any criminal charges that are issued, then we would escalate to suspension without pay. So when criminal charges was brought forth from the state attorney, we transitioned to that period of now he's going to be suspended without pay. From its simple point, doing what's right. I think coming out early on, and it's hard for all of us to go back to the first press conference we had about this and the discussion, I had made it clear that I had witnessed this video firsthand, as I do all allegations of misconduct. And there was no justifiable cause to respond in that matter as a professional law enforcement officer with years of experience with a multitude of trainings and defensive tactics and the ability to use a lesser level of any type of force or even communication that could have de-escalated that situation from happening. Well, I'll tell you, since we have concluded the internal affairs investigations, I talked to Director Coleman here to provide you with a copy of the complete report. You feel free to look in there. But I'm going to go back to kind of the same premise. Does it matter? Does it matter what was said on her side or his side? To respond physically to someone who we know suffers from some form of mental illness, you're a law enforcement officer responsible for safeguarding that individual, and to lose all discipline and temperament where you could have possibly killed a child is unacceptable. I don't recall his file. Spent some time, but I would encourage you to look through it. If he had 0 disciplinary actions, it wouldn't matter. We get judged based on what we do, right? Not what we've done. And so one of the things I've shared a long time ago as a training sergeant and working with personnel, I said, we're only as good as the last call we were on. So you may have won 1,000 medals in your career here, but the moment you break that precedence and decide you're going to hurt someone and slam someone, that's the only thing I'm going to measure you on.